All right, let's call the meeting to order. We're close enough. Somebody's got the role for Park and Rec Advisory, right? All right. Before we start the minutes, guys, Park and Rec Advisory, you were sent the minutes from the May 12th remote meeting. Everybody get a chance to look those over?
Yes.
Anybody have any corrections, retractions, anything you don't want your name associated with? Let us know now. Anybody? Is there a motion otherwise to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. I'm going to open it up at this point for public comment on any issue other than the Veterans Memorial Park, which we'll have public comment on when we get to the stakeholders portion. Is there anybody out here who wants to speak on any issue? Public wants to speak on any issue other than that? If not, we will move forward. Why don't we do this, Natisha? Why don't we identify ourselves for Natisha and her committee, and she will do the same, and then we can get into our discussions. I'm going to start. I'm Howie Lavender, Chair of Parks and Rec Advisory. Tara?
Hi, I'm Tara Van Genderen. Nice to meet you.
And Vice Chair Susan?
Susan Chambers, Vice Chair of Parks and Rec.
Close enough. Ryan?
Hey, Ryan McClatchy.
Sandy?
Sandy Lee.
Okay, let me get to my next screen. Sorry, guys. There's Debbie's there. Okay.
Howdy. I'm Debbie
And, we have Michelle Santucci and Melissa Johnson from the Parks and Rec Department who are joining us here too. All right, Natisha, if you want, why don't you identify who your folks are so we can see who we're dealing with, and then we'll get down to business, more or less. Thanks.
Sure. My name is Natisha Rivera Patrick, and I serve as chair for the Cultural Diversity Committee. And we have Angela Lee here with us tonight, Bob Hughes, Ashley Coomer, and then we're missing a couple of folks, and it may have just been a conflict. So we're happy to have the opportunity to speak with you all tonight.
Okay, and I understand tonight we're going to talk about programs and ideas that we can do at the Parks and Rec end to make it more inclusive for all members of the General Mathis community.
Correct.
Is that right? Unfortunately, we are missing a third of our members tonight, so we're going to be lacking a little bit of input. We'll do the best that we can. Would you prefer to roll this off, Natisha, yourself, or how you want to do this?
Can I? I'm sorry, real quick. Howie, we did the public comment part, and I left some people out of the meeting. And Jim Taylor wanted to make a public comment. I guess before we got into this conversation, is that okay?
That's fine. Other than on the Veterans Memorial Park,
I presume.
If he wants to talk about Veterans Memorial, let's leave that until after we go through the drawings and all that other stuff. You just want to check with him quickly and see if he wants to do that. We'll hold that off for a little bit. Allow Mark and Lee and Jim to make comments at that point.
Okay.
Howie, can you hear me?
Yeah, Mayor, I can.
I'm sorry. Corey and I got our lines crossed. I do not want to make any comments now. I potentially want to make some comments later, so I'll defer till later. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. We just figure it's better once we talk about the basic designs. All right, thank you.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Yep.
Natisha, why don't we start by what can Parks and Rec Advisory do and the Parks and Rec Department to help you with your cultural diversity initiatives?
Sure. I think we'll actually make that more of a dialogue because we're interested in hearing what you guys are currently doing and currently have planned. I think one of the main reasons we wanted to get together, we tend to operate within these committees in silos. And so it's just great to get in front of one another, talk about what we're working on, hear what you guys are working on, and then look at opportunities where we might be able to collaborate or certainly offer ideas of how we could better serve our community. And so just want to give you guys an update as far as what the CDC has been working on. And then again, hear what you guys are working on and then kind of build a dialogue out of that to see what opportunities might be there. we did have the opportunity to meet with the planning department a couple of months ago, and we found that to be very productive, and also realized that we really need to do this more often so that we can have more fluid involvement amongst all of these committees and help move things forward. So the most recent success I feel we've had as a committee is at the last meeting, the mayor did issue 2 formal proclamations, one in support of Pride Month and the other in support of Juneteenth. And those were, the word I used was monumental. I've been serving on this committee just over 3 years, and I can tell you that for us to have gotten to that place, which was a huge milestone, and so we were very happy to have had the support. I don't know what that vote looked like when it went, but it ended up becoming a formal proclamation, and so we were very pleased with being able to move that forward. In addition to that, back in November, we did host the first 21-day racial equity building challenge, in which the mayor and all but one commissioner participated, as did Hazen. And our committee, that was the first time that our committee had gone through that as well, while we had a couple of members who had done that in other, through a different avenue. And so we felt that that was very successful and allowed us to have a different conversation with the mayor and commissioners, and to help them have a better understanding where we are as a committee, what we're working on based on the strategic plan that we've provided them, and how we can partner going forward. And so the goal is for that is to repeat that. Hopefully we haven't gotten together now as a group, but to talk about doing that either on a quarterly basis or some type of regular basis, where we're offering that to community members, hopefully in person. As you said, we're getting to this, hopefully at the post-COVID world where we're able to meet in person, because certainly the conversations that are had within that 21-day challenge are better had in person. And so we're looking forward to what that might look like and feel like. And so just continuing to move things forward, talking with Hazen about different opportunities of how the committee can help support the town in DE&I efforts. And so even looking at a potential vision statement addition in support of DE&I efforts. And did I miss anything, guys? My committee crew, is that the main points? And so we, of course, deal with diversity and inclusion. And I know Corey has come and spoke to our committee in the past about what Parks and Rec is doing, especially as it related to playgrounds and accessibility and things like that. But just wanted to, and that's got to be over a year ago at this point, or maybe a year and a half. And so just wanted to get caught up on what you guys are working on, and then certainly talk about what opportunities there are for us to offer support and or advice on how we might be able to increase some of those DE&I efforts through what's doing with Parks and Rec.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Corey, do you want to?
Yeah, yeah, so it's funny. I had some awesome images to share, but as I discovered, as I'm recording this meeting, I cannot pull up my information well, no, actually, I guess I can just share my entire screen. So one project is the Heritage Trail. I think everyone is pretty familiar with it by now, but we have installed the interpretive signage, which was done roughly maybe 2 weeks or so ago now. And let me share my screen here with some images of what we have. It's not it. Hold on. All right, I'll tell you what, I'll send everybody an email that's got all of the some examples of the panels, and then have some photos of them actually installed now. We've gotten a lot of compliments. I do think that's one project it's taken a while, but now that it is reaching completion, it's one that certainly the people in Crestdale certainly appreciate, and I think it'll be very well received throughout the Matthews community and beyond. Any people visiting the Sportsplex, as you can tell, I'm very, very excited about that project. One other project, I see Leanne is here. I'm not sure if she's ready to be visible. But we've talked about another event, the Hispanic Heritage Month event. Haven't really put a name to it, but we are actually, as of today, we have sort of picked a date. We're looking at October 15th, where again, it will be celebrating Hispanic heritage, where it will be music, actually bringing in a professional dance team. Certainly the food trucks will be representative of the Hispanic culture. And Leanne and I both look at this as this sort of a precursor to this larger cultural event, hopefully to take place in Matthews pretty soon. There she is. So if, Leanne, if you want to share a little more information about Matthews, what was the name?
What did our guy call it today? We're trying not to name it because we know it's going to morph into something else, but he came up with a really cute name. There's not a whole lot to add. And apologies, we have a Matthews Live meeting at the same time of this meeting, so it's a little impossible to be in two places at once. Not too much to add to that, but it is going to be probably a precursor to a larger cultural event that will happen whenever it's possible, whenever we have an extra body that can handle it. But this will just kind of be a step in that direction. It is going to be October 15th, the last day of Heritage Month, on a Friday night, 5 to 9-ish. 3 or 4 food trucks. I don't really know how to estimate that yet. And we're looking for authentic food. I want authentic, from various areas if we have them in food trucks in this area. I mean, I know a couple that we bring to Food Truck Friday, but I'd really like to look for something special. Our music agency, Key Signature, is handling the entertainment. It sounds like we now need a dance floor for the dance troupe. And so he's kind of helping me with that. There'll be some signage that we need to do. We'll have an MC who is fluent in both languages, obviously, and then our signage will have to reflect that. We'll have someone translating and helping me translate all of our informational things that have to go out to everybody. So anyway, a lot of steps there that we've never done before. But that'll be October 15th. So yeah.
And it was
looking forward to it.
And it was Musica Matthews.
Musica Matthews. Yeah.
What about Ola Matthews?
Well, now there is an Ola festival. I'm not sure they'll get mad at us.
Hey, Leanne, if you need any help with that, I'd love to help you.
Okay. I would like for somebody to do it, but you help if you want. Somebody can take it and go. that'd be great. But by then I'll be through Matthews Live, so it would be better.
Leanne, you also mentioned a possible future Pride event or an LGBTQ type event too in your notes.
Yeah, that just came up in kind of a casual conversation because I think I was telling somebody about this event we were just talking about, and they were like, I wish we could do one in June in Matthews. Charlotte does theirs in August, and it's not really the month of recognition. And so, I just kind of said something to Corey in passing as well. I'm like, you know what? If we're doing this, why don't we try this? It kind of got me into a thought process of, yes, we're really good at doing Easter eggs and jack-o'-lanterns and tree lightings and all that, but wouldn't it be neat if we could take our events and maybe we've kind of always been on the forefront. Like we always want to be the first or before Waxhaw, before Stallings, before Mint Hill. I'm friends with all of them and we all have lunch and discuss everything. But I like that sometimes we step out there ahead. And so it would be nice to maybe kind of turn our events in that way, just be a little more progressive, I think. It would just be fun to plan some of those new things. I'll just put it that way. So I'm kind of open to almost kind of being first in a lot of different ways and in a different vein of thinking about our events. Yes, we still have to have some family stuff. I get it, but it would be really cool for us to be leaders in that, I think. So that would be June.
And we've got 2 other projects that I'm aware of. That's a start. Historically, we've not been great in programming for anything other than the majority white Christian base here in Matthews. And we've been making some strides, but it's just starting. One thing that's going on is the restoration of the historic Rosedale Cemetery, which eventually we hope to have a park along with some type of explanation of its significance and Crestdale's history, as well as there's access there. The other thing is a mural project that's going on in Crestdale, and I can't remember the name of the street, but it's a street between the cemetery at Mount Moriah and the railroad tracks, down where the community center used to be. That's just been started. Two other things that we haven't really. One group that we Blacks, African Americans, we really have not till recently began to recognize the Crestdale community, and that's on us, and that kind of needs to be taken care of. Another group that we haven't touched are AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islanders, or Southeast Asians. The group's got a couple of different names. We may want to go there. But we need to really kind of make an effort to create some programming that will both be of interest to those groups and also hopefully have enough interest so that other folks will come in and maybe learn something. And that's something we need to be working on, because Matthews, if you go to events in downtown Matthews, it's a fairly homogeneous group. The town of Matthews itself is not anywhere near that homogeneous, what you see. So that's just my thoughts on that. Guys, for my committee, anybody else want to add anything, throw in anything they're thinking about before we let Natisha and her committee chime in with some ideas, thoughts, or what they think we can do to help?
I just wanted to say a little bit about the Rosedale Cemetery. I know it's gotten I think it's fairly cleaned up at this point in time. I don't know how much more. I haven't gone back there. When Corey told me he had a nail in his tire, I decided not to venture back there. But anyway, but I think I'd like to do something because of the history of this, that would almost be like a big dedication, dedication, ribbon cut. I don't know, something that really, because it is special. And I am excited that we've had as many volunteers that have gotten involved with that. And I think there's a way to do some marketing and do a little bit more so that it's not just, it's back there and we've cleaned it up, but something that really helps market it and does some kind of a dedication ceremony with maybe mayor and town council members there, just something that makes that whole cemetery very special in our communities. My guess is we're just a small percentage of the people in this community that even realize that exists. And it is historically significant, and I would love to do something very special for that.
Yeah, I can share a little bit about that. We do have plans for some, there's certainly some signage recognizing, one, wayfinding, how to get to it. But then also recognizing, what it is, some identification signage. We haven't really developed the exact design yet, but signage is certainly going to be a big part of the Roseland Cemetery. And like you said, making people aware of it. I'm not sure if Hazen, you have any more detail about it, but we are going to do something special when it's done.
Okay, good.
The only thing I'd say is I did work out there, and they've done a great job cleaning it out, and then you have this periwinkle and mature trees. I think it's a majestic place, and I think I think it could be a very nice experience for a lot of people that walk through the area.
That's great.
Yeah. Anybody else? Just one other thing too from our end: religious diversity. We do Christian-based events all the time. There is a Hanukkah lighting. We apparently don't do anything that I can tell recognizing either the Hindu community, which is here in town, or the Islamic community, or there are a variety of others that may be smaller. I don't know. There are Buddhist temple. There's a Buddhist temple here in Matthews, I believe. So I'm not sure what we're doing there, and that's really a point of outreach we should be considering too. And certainly certain religious festivals or ceremonies would be a great way to highlight it and hopefully educate some folks too. It's not something we've done up till now, but if we're going to do outreach, that really is another way to go also.
We had a Diwali celebration 2 years ago, and at the time we talked about making it bigger, hopefully. That's something that I'd like to continue this year. With COVID last year, obviously we couldn't, but that would be one more thing that we could be doing this year too.
I guess I would say that I would want us all to be cognizant of, who's going to do this. You know what I mean? If I can be blunt, it takes bodies and it takes time in the calendar. And if we add a lot of things, then the equal amount of things have to drop off. So I would just say kind of not to be a Debbie Downer by any means, because I would love to kind of change our whole thought process about events, just to keep it fresh even for us. But, just keep that in mind that, somebody's going to have to do it, and it's going to be months ahead of every single thing. So just definitely something to consider.
Anybody else for Corey? You should go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
To Leanne's statement, is it, so say we work, as we get into some ideas here, is it required that the events can you have an outside committee? So if we come up with a particular event, can there be a committee that's responsible, perhaps with one of you all as the liaison to that? So to Leanne's point, there is a body that is responsible for working with you guys to execute those events. Is that allowable?
Corey may want to speak to that, but I would think so. I mean, I would welcome somebody to handle it, so that's not a problem for me.
Yeah, we're still developing our, call it our volunteer program, but we certainly enjoy any help, from anybody outside this department, just to make, many hands making light work. It'll certainly be only a benefit.
And going on everything that's been said thus far, and in particular with what Leanne was talking about as it related to June and Pride Month, and I think especially now with the formal proclamation that's been given by the town in support of both Pride and Juneteenth, ideally looking at something for both of those, then Pride Month, that's its own entity. And so, thinking of a volunteer group that would love to come in and put that together and potential events around that. And then Juneteenth, maybe it's doing something that Saturday and using it, the first thing that came to mind, and it's totally no meat to it at this point, but even doing some kind of scavenger hunt, which helps highlight all the different contributions that African Americans have had in the town of Matthews. So I think just to teach the history and build awareness of that. So I think there would definitely be some opportunities there, and it would fit well now with the town having shown support for that, if we were able to supplement that with some kind of event that involved the town itself. And so would certainly welcome future dialogues around that, and then how it could be supported, because I certainly understand it takes folks to make it happen. But I think given what we would be looking at, there would be folks outside of both of our committees that would be willing to step up and help put something like that together. So I think I would love to have a further conversation about that.
Keisha, anybody else on your committee want to weigh in or share their thoughts with us?
Angela, Bob, Ashley, any of you guys want to share anything?
Well, just that appreciate all the different ideas that are floating around, and I'm also aware of the Matthews Playhouse we've talked with about doing things that are more inclusive. Yeah, they have the Black Playwrights Festival that's going to be going. I guess they selected their play, and that's going to be on in the fall, as I understood it. Question for you guys and the Cultural Diversity Committee. If we want to go do or help in some form of outreach, have you found are the faith communities the best places to start, or where is really a good place to get contact and entry?
I think definitely our faith-based partners. Pastor Chuck from Matthews United Methodist does serve on this committee. He wasn't able to be with us tonight, but they are certainly partners in all veins of what we're working on and can help spread the word. I think we're just really within the last year, and I think Hazen and the group would agree with this, starting to make some forward progress, actually getting some traction Part of that has to do with the mayor and commissioners buy-in and helping move some of this forward. So we're excited to at least be getting that motion and moving forward. And I think we're kind of fleshing out what that looks like as we move ahead and how we can best support the town, not only in situations like this where it's potential cultural events that we're helping bring to the community, but in terms of education, certainly in terms of support for those living within our town, but also in training and in practices with the town itself, so making sure from a hiring standpoint, I know Pastor Chuck's always on Hazen about that, but just making sure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure those DE&I efforts and lending a voice to that, and potentially coming up with some language around maybe there's a DE&I statement. Part of that would be the vision statement from a policy standpoint, what that might look like for the town. So I think we'll start to flesh that out over the next few months and have a better idea of direction after that.
Is there any kind of cultural programming, other than historic recognition of holidays that might be, we might want to consider to bring folks into Matthews that don't normally come in for our events?
I like the ideas that you guys put forth so far. So certainly looking at Hispanic Heritage Month, and we as a committee, as CDC, had talked about doing a larger type of cultural festival. So would love to hear as that planning starts to come into play, what that might look like, feel like, and certainly can serve as a resource to try to help support that, not only as a committee, but in bringing on others to potentially support that event as well. That I would love to see something like that come to fruition.
Natisha, do you all have a breakdown of the ethnic or religious breakup in Matthews, so we know what are the larger groups, what are the smaller groups? Because that may also help us prioritize where we want to start rather than a scattershot approach.
Sure, and we haven't done that as a committee, but that I'm certain that's something that I can pull to look at what those demographics are. I'll make.
Alyssa, did you want to set? Did I see a hand?
I was just trying to hide some background.
Okay, good enough. Yeah, but in other words, that would be great, because if we're going to start doing this, we might want to start with a larger subgroup in town and work downward rather than just grabbing a group and seeing what happens.
Yeah, and I think there's so many things that exist. I know we were saying we like to be the first, and I certainly agree with that. And when we hosted the Diwali Festival, that was actually the first time it had been hosted at a town hall anywhere in the U.S. And so Matthews was really the first for that. And that's something we would certainly like to see repeated. And we do have a great relationship. And for us as a committee, that MB and his group did all of that work. We just had to serve basically as a liaison, but they took care of everything. And so we would definitely be able to do that on a larger scale. We were confined to town hall and what we could accommodate there, but that could be its own event on its own, and have minimal, as we talk about who does what, have minimal work on the efforts of any other committees. So
yeah, well, we do have the advantage of having that area right in town hall. We'll do the tree lighting and the Hanukkah lighting, some of these other events where it's a relatively small, constrained area. Certainly for the first event, maybe they will take off. Maybe they will grow into something else, but that gives us a pretty good ability to pack a couple of hundred people into downtown Matthews.
Yeah, and that was a well-attended event, so I know that certainly if we wanted to do something larger than that, we would be able to do that.
Is there anything with the census data that would help regarding the town of Matthews and the different demographics?
So
do we know?
Yeah, Angela, I think you're bringing up a great point, because we do have the 2010 census that shows, I don't know, about 10% African-American, 78% white, and then Hispanic and Asians are relatively small percentages. But now it's 11 years later, right? And we know the story of everything's behind on the census. I would not wait to do anything as far as festival goes, waiting on those data, but I do think it's a great point that having new data to look at the makeup of our community is really be important going forward, not to stop anything we're doing now, though.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking about the statement of the events that occur downtown seem to not reflect the diversity of the community. And so that just may be a way. I'm just thinking about the request to Natisha on demographics and different sections in our, community. Just kind of, that may be a way to kind of start cutting at it and figuring out how diverse we are, and that could maybe help with the programming.
And I'll check too, Hazen, when we did the housing study, I guess that's been 1.5 years ago now, maybe 2 years, with all the demographic data that we collected for that, I bet you we can pull something out of there. I'll go back and circle back at those notes, because that would be more current.
And then the religious diversity, I'm just thinking about data on the different types of houses of faith and houses of worship in the community. If there's something that could be, gleaned, from there too. By the way, I commend the committee for your ideas. I was just thinking just how remarkable and forward thinking this group is when I think about the different suggestions and ideas that you all have come up with programming in Matthews. So kudos for the forward thinking.
And something else you guys might want to realize that our footprint goes much larger than Matthews. We have a significant reach into especially Union County and maybe a small pocket of Southeast Charlotte, which is relatively homogeneous. But, so we're not just looking at what Matthews looks like. We're looking really at the eastern end of Union County also, because they come into town for our events, because there's not much going on, in that part of the county.
Well, and I think you see the diversity represented when you attend events like Matthews Alive. I mean, that's really more representative of what I feel Matthews is and represents. And so you definitely see the diversity represented there.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that are being said tonight is, well, Matthews may not be as diversified. The world is diversified, right? And to kind of have that opportunity to expand worldviews, the world's a big place. To me, it sounds interesting.
Marilyn, you jumped on. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I apologize for being tardy, but it's interesting. I was tardy because I spent the last 4 hours at a park in Matthews. Francis Beatty Park. I have been kayaking all day today. And when I tell you, I knew the meeting was coming. I thought it was 7 o'clock. I'm so sorry. I just had 7 o'clock in my brain for some reason. I apologize. But thinking about diversity, I knew we were going to have this meeting. I'm thinking, I don't know how we could brand together, but some of us love water. Some of us love to kayak. So if there's an opportunity to do something, I was thinking, I don't know what we've been discussing, so please forgive me, but I did hear you mention Matthews Alive. And the only times when I come to the center of town, right, and it seems culturally diverse and we're celebrating Matthews Alive. So that's always been a wonderful thing. In fact, a few years ago, we had a Prince impersonator. I don't know who was in charge of that, but he was really, really good. And as a Prince fan, I was very pleased. I still have that on video. But I said all that to say there's not a lot of people of color who you would think do outdoorsy things. There's fishing. I don't know. You all are familiar with that park, right? Because I just discovered the park. I am in love with it. And I plan on being there 3 times a week to kayak, right? So if there are people diverse, interested, like bringing groups, the turtles that were there, I'm always thinking like an educator, like, oh, this could be a collaborative, like field trip, like Socrates School is right there and your school's right there. And they can, a field trip and we learn and do things. So that's kind of where I was. That's kind of the space. So I was thinking about this meeting. So I promise you, even though I was tardy, I've been on the I was thinking about what I was going to say as I was kayaking, and I love that park. I think we should not let it go to waste. And if I'm just new to finding it out, I'm a fan, and I will be there, like I said, 3 times a week with my kayak because I love it. So.
Yeah, Marilyn, that's great. Just one point. It's actually a county park, not a town of Matthews park. So,
okay.
we're limited. We're limited in what we can use it for. Unfortunately, we don't have another park that has a water feature that would allow kayaking. But just want to let you know that so that there's no misunderstanding. I'd love it to be ours, but it's not.
Okay, good to know.
That speaks to the point of some of the conversations we have a lot. You know what? When it comes down to it, the people don't care who owns the park. They know, they think of the park in our area, like Idlewild Park. You may think it's a town park, county park. Honestly, it doesn't matter. They just want a good park. And that's awesome that you brought that up.
Thank you.
So one thing we didn't touch on, but I feel is also important when it comes to accessibility, as it relates to any projects that are currently going on, or even I know there had been some playgrounds and things that we had talked about in the past. Have we had any movement there? Is there anything new going on there?
Sorry, give me a little context.
We were looking at accessibility for folks that are differently abled that would be able to access and utilize the park areas.
Yes, so we are making some strides. We just installed a new swing set in Rice Park, and it does have an adaptive swing as well as I guess called a mommy and me swing. So, taking small steps. We do have a new structure currently proposed in the town budget for FY22 for new equipment in Windsor Park. And, we're going to certainly look at all the different amenities or different components to the playground equipment, make them as accessible as possible, and continue to have that in the forefront of our mind when we select playground equipment.
Or does the ADA apply to parks as well as structures?
It does apply to access to the structures. And
in other words, if we do any substantial renovations in the park, like we do to a structure, we have to then be ADA compliant, even if the park predated that. Is that right?
I'll say yeah, but I think as a general practice, we practice that anyway. Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful too. All right. Well, I definitely, and you, Corey, you can let me know the best way to have continued conversations around not only what you guys are already planning as it relates to the Hispanic Festival, but even as you start to have other conversations, or if we want to have a separate conversation about what some potential opportunities would be, and then what that would take to actually make that happen, knowing the manpower and potential resources that might be required to pull that off. So would love to have that follow up and kind of walk through that and see if we can't bring any of those to fruition.
Certainly. We would love to help.
And Natisha, if you or any members of your committee have any ideas, just want to do an outreach, just feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to work with you and get some of this going without overburdening Leanne. We can, but there are certainly events that can be added this year, and then work on adding more next year and go from there. And obviously, there are certain events we may pull off that for whatever reason may not work. Or that then at least we know. Let's move on to the next thing down the list.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
All right, thank you. Anybody else from cultural diversity want to add anything or give us any input or information that would be helpful to us? Yeah, all right. Well, I guess thank you, Natisha. Thank you, and the members of your committee who took the time to be with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for having us. And again, let's not be strangers, because I think there's a lot that we could partner on. And certainly as the town starts to move in a more progressive direction, we can be at the forefront in doing a lot of great things. So I appreciate each one of you and your time.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Next up.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, you guys are certainly welcome to stay for the next part of the meeting, or you can take off if you like. We're going to talk about some other parks.
Okay. Next item is the the Veterans Memorial Park, I'm going to call it enhancements for the lack of a better term. And I know that may not be what everybody wants to hear, but the delineation enhancements proposed for the Veterans Memorial location at or next to Stumptown Park. And I know that's another point of contention.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, give me 1 second. Let me transition people in and transition people out. Let's see.
Recording in progress.
And we have Mr. Tefano, Mayor Taylor, and Mayor Myers coming in, correct?
Yes.
Anybody else, or that covers everybody else who's still in the meeting, other than committee members and staff?
I think that's it.
Okay.
And if I look like I'm focusing, I really am concentrating right now. I think we got everybody. All right,
Corey, you mentioned that the landscape architect is not going to be with us tonight, so they've kind of given the preliminary designs to you. Doug Rose and Larry Stawicki are not here?
No.
I'm surprised. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right, so, we did include this follow-up meeting to discuss our progress in designing what Stumptown Park, Veterans Memorial Park, how they will interface and what that's going to look like. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. All right, so as you know, we met in May, discussed some ideas, shared them with the landscape architect, and I guess we had a few follow-up conversations, but truly we gave it to them, their creative team, and said, just bring us something back. And that's sort of where we are right now. So what I'm about to pull up, I received in an email at about 5 o'clock. So we're going to be, discovering some of this for the first time together. Let's see here. Well, actually, before I pull that up, I want to, talk through what goals for tonight. So talking about what the goals are for tonight. Certainly it is to, receive feedback on these preliminary illustrations, and certainly make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share their thoughts and make any suggestions, right? But I do think equally as important is what the goals of tonight are not. All right, so one, I think, thinking about it, consensus is like, that's like that Curry 3-point shot, for the game winner, certainly something that'd be awesome. But, that's not our target tonight. It really is to receive input that we'll continue to use. And then using the feedback from tonight, staff, the town engineer, landscape manager, and other SMEs, subject matter experts are going to work toward what will be the ultimate design that's going to go to the town board. And so with that tonight, it's certainly not an attempt to come up with a final design for what's going to be submitted. I expected a larger group, so I guess call it the rules will be a little bit, shortened. Something like my dad would always say, we can sing together, but we can't talk together. So let's let everybody finish their thoughts, and then give any other points they like to share along whatever the comment is. And you'll see tonight we have added the chat feature, and I'm going to use that as a resource for note taking. So what I'm going to do is pull up an illustration. It has a label on it, and I'm going to type that illustration into the chat box, and then I want everyone to chat or type their comments in the chat box, to that specific illustration. Now with that, certainly verbalize what your thoughts are, but I want to capture the messaging, the notes, and the chats that I'll use along with the recording, and certainly any other comments that we make. So you don't chat everything. I guess don't type everything in there, but any comments, summary of your comments, I do want to record them in the chat feature if we could. And again, to keep it in some order, I'm going to type the name of the title of the illustration. Below that, I'll type the next, illustration and go on, so on and so forth. All right. Any questions? All right. All right, we're getting there. All right, so again, Stewart was the organization that we're working with. Nice little cover page. So I'm going to zoom in here. So the first illustration we're looking at is the enhanced landscape version. Sorry. All right. Yeah. All right. So I just discovered I cannot chat while I'm sharing my screen. So with that, maybe preface your chats with numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 4 different versions or iterations. I'm going to have to take some handwritten notes here. All right, so I'm going to begin to describe it, say, from the perspective of moving Trade Street to the tree line or from east to west. So in this iteration, we have the existing sidewalk. There are columns here, and this brown colorish is pavers. That would be portions of the sidewalk used to enhance the walkway. Moving west, the brown is in fact additional pavers, same type material that provides a walkway to each of the memorials, going across the sidewalk and then extending a little further into the actual lawn. And these are, like I said, pavers, so horizontal to the ground. The Memorial Plaza is enhanced a bit. What you see here, if you can see my cursor, these are some types of seating that will be in the paver brick area of the Memorial Plaza. And then continuing west is additional bench seating with, additional pavers, but it is cut into the existing landscape. So this is call it a wall to the north of the meditation garden. Call it a retaining wall, but it will certainly be decorative. And then additional pavers continuing west with 2 columns on the left and right of these. And then it is the grass remaining as is. And that's pretty much all the details of this version.
Corey, the granite monuments with pavers, are they the existing monuments or are they talking about raising them to some extent?
No, these are existing. The pavers are just simply view it as a pathway from the grass to the actual monuments as they sit today.
Thank you.
And please, type comments into the chat, but also feel free to just begin some discussion or comments about that.
Corey, it's Jim. What is that event seating dotted line, kind of a half curve inside the Stumptown Park area? What is that?
It is nothing added. It just represents the grass seating.
Okay, so then am I correct in understanding in this depiction, there is nothing, no additional building of anything or structure or column or anything on what I would call the inside of the sidewalk, on the inside of the park. Is that correct?
Correct. Nothing vertical. There's the Memorial Plaza additional pavers would come further in, say, looking at the
it's way over.
couple of feet from the
outside of the sidewalk.
No, all of that's inside. Comes inside.
You broke up a little bit.
No, okay. I'm sorry. There's a bad echo. Hang on, Corey, 1 second.
Volume down.
I think I got what you. Well, I'll just add. Yeah. So right now the sidewalk is it is the border of the Memorial Plaza with the brick pavers. This version shows additional pavers coming, actually replacing this portion of sidewalk. It would be pavers that would come out X number of feet into the lawn, but it would not. It would be it'd be pavers. So we're not showing any structures or anything verticals in this version.
Okay, and those two would look like columns on the left side of the picture, just above the N in the word column, and on the right side of the picture, just to the northeast of the word column. Are those vertical structures?
Yes, those are shown as vertical in this illustration.
And how tall would they be?
No specs on them. I guess conceptual at this point.
Well, I think that needs to be defined. I mean, there's a big difference between a 3-foot structure and a 10-foot structure or something along those lines. But I think those need to be nailed down. But I appreciate the answers to my questions. Thanks.
Again, with sharing my screen, I cannot see your comments.
Does anybody else want to comment? Committee members want to comment orally on any of this or ask any questions, and then we'll open up to Mr. Tufano and Mayor Myers. I can't see y'all, so if you want to talk, just chime in.
Hi, Howie.
I'm assuming no.
This is Howie.
I'm sorry?
Mark. I'm just going to reserve my comments till I see all of the drawings.
Okay, that's fine. Mayor Myers, I know you're sitting in. Do you want to have any questions or want to add anything on this one before we move to design 2?
He shared in the chat that he did not want to make any comments.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Number 2. So this is the enhanced landscape version. Again, moving from east to west, existing sidewalk, and this is labeled as a park entry. At this point, it is looking at something, again, call it more horizontal to the ground. If it is something that's additional pavers or again, the height of anything is not really spec. It is really conceptual, something that will be on either both sides of the sidewalk, potentially on, call it the one side or outside of the sidewalk. But again, that entry that landscape architect heard as comments. In this version, the brick pavers would switch from will be added more as a larger part of the concrete walkway. Color here is red, of course, but that's something to still be determined. And also with this version, the I guess symmetrical theme was one that came from their whatever creative brains, was to split the memorial monuments, 3 on the left and 3 on the right. Same idea with the Memorial Plaza, extends a little further out into the grass, but it is more pavers and, like I said, not vertical. And then same thing as at the entry on the other side of the walkway, a identifier of the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park as anyone were to come into the area, and calling this the historic walk. These 2 bookends of the pavers, or with pavers.
Anybody on Parks and Rec Committee want to ask any questions or throw in anything on we'll call it Design 2?
I will say, I think that looks so much more balanced than the way that it is now, personally.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, we've had a couple of conversations about it, nothing in real detail. And yeah, but so then when they handed it to their, creative team, that was something that they looked at, looking at the area. Again, this is called the symmetrical vein in their creative examples. All right. Again, I'm presuming that.
Mayor Myers, Mayor Taylor, I know Mark's going to hold off, but either of you have any questions or comments you want to put in at this point?
Hey, Howie, it's Jim. I appreciate that. I have to agree from what I've seen so far. This one does look much more balanced, but I have concerns about tearing apart all the work that's been done thus far. But I think Mark had a very good point. I think we need to see all of them before we can actually make some educated comments. We need to see all four of the designs.
Okay. Well, I can. Let's do this.
Corey, can you just go through all four and then maybe possibly put 2 and 2 together or whatever, and then maybe all of us can collectively zero in on one of them or something?
Yeah, so the last page does have all four on the same page. And so we can just skip down to that. So we've looked at these top two. Then here on the bottom, again, looking at park entry, more at pavers, debate about something a little vertical here, still trying to work through that conversation, but using the existing sidewalk. And then in this example, the monuments are put in a different orientation, and a walk into this area is created to have that call it entry into the memorial area, or where the memorial markers are, circling around, some planting in the middle, and then coming out to this memorial plaza here. Again, extending the pavers a little further into the grass. This version does have a seawall with some landscape on the outer edge of the seawall. And then again with a park entry identifier on this far end here.
Corey, what's this historic walk there? Is that just referring to the pavers? I'm not really understanding what that is.
Yeah, it's just a label. It's just a label that they put on it to sort of identify this version of the illustration.
And what is that right above historic walk in the diagram?
That's 3 of the memorial stones, the war memorials, and then the other 3 are on the left or the west side of the memorial plaza.
So, Corey, if I understand that completely, that's completely undoing and redoing what the American Legion has done thus far, correct?
That one does rearrange the war memorials.
Well, let me ask this question. It appears that, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, it appears that let me back up, 3 of the 4 involve moving the existing monuments. The only one that shows them in the current position is the top upper left-hand corner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you go from left to right, top to bottom, 1 being top left and working your way clockwise, 2, 3, and 4 involve destroying what's there today and rebuilding it completely. 1 takes what's there and just modifies what's there. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understood what you're showing. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess we did. That was part of the conversation we had. Certainly looking at what was already done, and I guess for the landscape architect, we challenged them to come up with some designs, and I don't think we will, well, in my opinion, it will certainly be that conversation before it's any decisions to move or changing the work that's been done. But without telling them what to do and then not telling them not to do what we asked them to do, this is certainly where we are right now. Well, these are the first illustrations we got back.
Corey, am I understanding the only difference between 3 and 4 is the seating wall? Are they identical otherwise, or am I missing something?
Correct. 3 and 4, the difference is the seating wall is in 4 and not in 3.
And Corey, a follow-up on Howie's question. On 2, 3, and 4, the Memorial Plaza, did I hear you say that you'd enhance the pavers into the existing park to some amount? Do you have a estimate of how many feet into the existing park that would be?
We do not. I mean, roughly 4, but no, this is, at this point, purely conceptual.
Okay, and what is that pink thing? Is that a tree right above the word historic park? On the 2 lower drawings.
Yeah, that was my question earlier.
Yes, yes, that is a plant or a tree.
Okay, looking at a tree. Okay, thank you. I'll just listen to other comments now.
Corey, Doug Rose had hooked in. I don't know if he can hear us or whether he's in or not.
Howie, can you not
Doug,
see?
can you hear us? I can't see. I can only see the speaker right now because all I can see is the diagram. I've lost the group focus.
Okay, because I was raising my hand to comment. I was wondering.
All right, hold on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't see you unless Corey probably can, but I cannot. But go ahead, Mark. Sorry about that.
Okay. First of all, I want to address the off balance issue. The reason it appears that it's off balance now is because there's so much planned for the left side. We were actually having discussions about having a special monument to the Tuskegee Airmen and also to the very similar to what's on the National Mall about women in combat especially during Vietnam War. So there was 2 or 3 additions that we wanted to make on the left-hand side. So that's the reason why it may appear to be off balance now, because there's future plans. All of these plans have promise. I told the people at Stewart that the monuments, whoops.
I had to do that to let Doug in. Give me 1 second. Keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
That the monuments could possibly be moved without being damaged. So that's probably why they came up with those ideas. We'd have to have somebody come in and with a crane and actually lift them, and somebody experienced in that. But I think they can be moved without being damaged. But can you put the drawings back up now again, Corey?
Yes.
Okay, they all have promise and they're all lovely. But they all have one common flaw, and that is the entrance on the left needs to be moved down below the curvature in the sidewalk. It was approved by the council that the boundary for the Memorial Park would go all the way from the left boundary all the way to the right boundary of the park. And this cuts off almost, 30-40% of what we had planned for that area. So those 2 columns on the left need to be moved down. If you were to look at numbers 3 and 4 where it says the word park, if you were to take the letter P and just go straight to the left from that, if you had those columns moved down to that area, then every one of these is workable.
Now, that's where the playground is right now.
That's where one piece of playground is. And are you saying that you're not willing to look at the possibility of moving that one piece to another part of the park?
I'm saying that to do that would be to put it inside of the playground.
Well, what about reconfiguring the playground?
We'll consider everything.
Yes. So again, the council approved all the way from the left perimeter of what is now Stumptown Park to the right boundary of Stumptown Park, and this is not honoring that vote. So this, the pillars, if they were to be moved down to where I suggested, taking the letter P and coming straight to the left, every one of these has promise if we move those.
Mark, with all due respect, I sat in on that meeting too, and I'm not aware of any indication as to where that entry should be on the left side. Town council may decide, but there was no vote. There was there may have been discussions about things, but there was no clear direction. We understand your position, and that's fine, but I'm not under the impression that town council said that the entryway should be in the area where the swings are, the park is right now.
Well, not specifically.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, not specifically the entryway, but if you remember, there was an aerial view that came up with a red line that went all the way from left to right. And as a matter of fact, Commissioner Miller asked for a definition of what they were voting on. And that's when it came up. And so it was after that presentation was made that the vote was taken.
Yes, thank you, Mark. It's just a point that I'm not sure where we're at, but I understand your desire to have the left column be in the area where the playground is right now.
Well, if you don't, you're literally cutting off 30 to 40% of the Veterans Park.
Howie, this is Jim, and I just want to reiterate, or not reiterate, but just agree. My recollection of the meeting with town council was that red line was not a definite position of where the delineation of the two parks should be, but just an idea of what we're talking about. I thought part of this meeting and the landscape designers were to incorporate what that delineation would be. So I agree with your assertion or assessment, as well as Corey's, as to what we're looking at and what we're being asked to debate here today.
Okay, thank you. I don't think Mayor Myers is with us anymore, but Doug, you've kind of jumped in here, and I want to give you a chance, one, to ask questions about any of the designs in front of you, and two, to give us your thoughts on this.
Well, first of all, my apologies for joining late. I was out to dinner and I realized I missed the meeting. I agree with both Jim and Mark. I don't think there was when they put up the initial photo or area, when they put it out in red, it did go down a little bit. So I think that the designers should consider it, like I said, one way or the other. But none of these designs actually included, they all stop at that one area up there. And I don't know if that was a defined delineation for the left side boundary. So it would behoove us for Corey, if you would, to go back to the town and at one meeting, because I know they showed a display of that one photo on how far it went down, but possibly for them to take a relook at that and, consider that. I know it went all the way down to, at least I thought it did also, went down to that first part of the playground where that one item that was non-functional right now, that one little turnaround swing. But I think all these designs are very lovely from what I'm seeing so far. I think the entry, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make one way or the other, but I would like to at least have that considered and the boundary defined. If that's the boundary up there, and that's what was done by the town council or the board of commissioners, then so be it. But I thought it did go down a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, share some information. That red line was it was very arbitrary to show relative location to the space we're talking about. There's no plan to subdivide the property, create parcel A and parcel B. This will continue to be, one parcel. The entry point, the whatever amenity is added to show the name of the park. This is really looking at park design, what fits where, what functions best, and where it functions best.
But again, all these designs take a major portion of the Veterans Memorial Park away. And by moving that down to the curvature, and Corey, I understand how sensitive you are about the current design, But we're talking about an issue here that has been way, way overdue. And if we're being hung up over one piece of playground equipment to honor veterans that haven't been honored in 142 years, I think that's a little bit unreasonable. So if you would be so kind as to remain open in that respect, and for us to try to find a compromise here. To me, taking that entry point on the left and moving it up it's unacceptable to me. All four of these are, because it takes so much of the Veterans Memorial Park away.
Corey, this is Jim. Or maybe this is to you, Howie, I'm not sure. What is the mission or the goal of this evening? Is it to come to a consensus by your boards as to which one of these drawings, if any of them, are the ones to move forward with? Or is it just to have a discussion and debate about all four? What's the goal?
Yeah, tonight is really input. Like I said, consensus would be that Curry three-pointer from half court. But, that's not our target. Really, it is to get input on these illustrations, and then staff and the rest of the design team is going to take that input and then move forward with what will be the final design to be presented.
Well, then, if that's the case, I'll start the ball rolling and give you my opinion of what I see here tonight. I personally think that there's been a lot of effort put into all four of these drawings, and the one that stands out to me, the number one and number two. Number one would be the one in the upper right-hand corner, where it does move the monument into a much more balanced position. And quite frankly, I wish this type of conversation had been done before the initial work had been done on the park, because we probably would have had a much better product at the end. But I think that the one where your cursor is now, Corey, is much more balanced, much more in scale with the existing Stumptown Park, and would be a very nice enhancement and wonderful monument to all the veterans of the community. The next one in line would be the one just below it. I do like the rounded area where the monuments are back in there, and with the tree. I think that's lovely. So my two suggestions would be upper right is number one, upper right is number one, lower right is number two. And I'll start the ball rolling and see if anybody agrees or disagrees.
Jim, I'm sorry. Are we talking about the Monumental Plaza and the Memorial Walk alternative? You mentioned right. Are we talking left or right? I'm a little confused.
They're to my right. The Memorial Plaza, which is in my screen, is the upper right corner. And the Memorial Walk alternative, which is on the lower right corner of my screen.
The Monumental Plaza and the Memorial Walk alternative are the two that you're liking, correct?
In that order, Howie, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's better to be clear, to clarify and be clear. So no worries. Thank you.
Right. Before I go to the committee, Mayor Myers, I don't know if you want to chime in or not. I can't see you, so I'm kind of flying blind here.
Yeah.
I think, Howie, I think Lee has chimed in by the text message and said that he wanted to listen. I'm sure he'll chime in if he wants to speak.
Okay. And Mark, you've made some comments about wanting to move the left column gateway over towards the playground, but in terms of the existing designs, is there any one that you favor, or one or more you favor over the others at this point?
Well, I do not like the Monumental Plaza one because of the fact that there's so much yet to be planned for the left side of the park, and the reason that what appears to be off balance now will be considered to be balanced in the next year or two. So these are proposals that, of course, will make through the Parks and Rec Committee, and of course get approval from the Commission. But we'd like to honor Americans of African descent in that park. We want to honor women. We want to honor the POW MIAs. There's so much to be done on the left side, and by moving that entrance so far up, it completely eliminates those plans.
Yeah. Mark, we understand that, and that's on all four of those, but I'm saying with that issue aside for the time being, we have four potential schematics in front of us. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, whether there's one you favor more than the others. Or
actually, they're all good except for the Monumental Plaza. That one needs to, in my opinion, is unworkable for the future. But the others, I think, are quite lovely.
All right, thank you. Doug, I'm going to ask you the same question before I get to the members of our committee.
Thank you.
About your thoughts here.
So I'm looking at them all also, and what I really like, a combination right now, I like the Memorial Walk alternative with that tree or whatever it is in the middle and the monuments on the right-hand side. But in the dug-in plaza, I like the meditation garden. So if we could take like number 4, the Memorial Walk alternative, and add the meditation garden to that, I think that would, because if we're remembering, we're talking about some place for the veterans to sit and to meditate and to have some seating. I think a combination of that walk alternative along with the meditation garden I would prefer.
Thank you, Doug. I'm going to, once again, guys, remember I'm flying blind here. I can't see you. So I'm going to ask the members of the Park and Rec Committee to kind of chime in on questions, thoughts, or preferences on what's out there right now. Just what you're thinking, if you don't mind.
I'll start off. I think we need to know what future plans are in play for the memorial area before we move forward with this stuff. Personally, because it could completely change the way that the area looks.
I would like to say on that, Susan, I talked to the mayor yesterday. I was in a meeting with him talking about remembrance banners. And one of the things that I know that he was talking about is, and I know Mark probably won't enjoy this portion of it, but again, less is more. But whatever we do, we don't want to, like Mark said, hinder anything. I think there's opportunities as we move further for park development. Of course, anything that we bring up to put into the park will go through the Board of Commissioners and through Parks and Recs for approval. But again, I don't think there's anything that we can say that's going to go in the very near future. We don't have anything that's been approved or planned. But I hear what Mark's saying, that I think that top left area, there's really nothing up there and or preventing. What are the future park plans for Stumptown in that upper left corner that we couldn't probably allow to expand the memorial, the Veterans Memorial into that area, because again, it's not going to bring anything down to the stage, and it is on the upper left side of the walkway. I think that would just allow us the opportunity to look at future enhancements.
If I could chime in on that, Doug, that portion in the upper left is literally unusable, and if it wasn't for our team that went out there about 2-3 weeks ago to clear it out, it was literally an unusable piece of property, and there was no one ever going in there or sitting there or watching anything from there. And so with the help of the town and with the help of Ralph Ramser, we re-landscaped that entire hill and cleaned out that entire area. So currently it's not being used for anything, but it could be.
Thank you, Mark. If you guys don't have any more comments, I'm going to go. Since I'm flying blind, I'm just going to kind of poll members of our committee. Debbie, anything you want to ask or make comments on with these?
I like what Doug Rose is saying in regards to making it a hybrid. I mean, I like how this park is, Stumptown is becoming inclusive of this beautiful park, and how the meditation garden would be wonderful in that corner. But I'm concerned about just removing all maybe that's the details, like how do you remove those big memorials? I don't want to deconstruct that whole thing. I mean, it looks beautiful. So
yeah, I told the design. I'm sorry, I jumped in. I'm sorry. I told the designers that with proper care, that's steel. It's steel reinforced foundation underneath each one of the monuments, and if it's properly strapped, they actually could be lifted and moved to another location. But so I'm hoping that can be done without damage to them, but that's yet to be seen.
Right. So with that concern just out there, like my first instinct is to like the first one, and I like the historic walk, like a hybrid and having just various seated in that tree. And also definition of where the park is. Does that make sense? So I guess this is there's not a go back and create another hybrid picture, is there?
I mean, well, this is a Chinese buffet in a sense. We are looking at, different amenities or orientations of each of these four. And, we're taking these comments, and that's how the final three are going to be developed.
Got it. Okay. I'd like to see the definition of the park established. I like the meditation garden. I like the historic walk. And I like what they have planned for the future with regards to like the women in military. So I think that's great to have that.
All right, thanks, Debbie. Anything else, or that covers what you're thinking?
No, I do. No, that's it for now.
Okay, Tara, I'm gonna see. You want to have some input on this? I'm sorry, I can't see you, so I'm just going to call out some names, make sure everybody gets a chance.
Yeah, thank you. My first pick is the Memorial Walk alternative. I assume that's the favorite over the one beside it, the Memorial Walk that includes that seat wall that would encroach. Excuse that word. And with the Memorial Walk alternative, where you've got the semicircle with the tree in the middle and the monuments there, it also, we're just learning about future plans and ideas for added memorials. And could make it symmetrical on the left-hand side in that area Mark was talking about, where they just cleared out for maybe a similar type of semicircle for additional monuments there in that area that's being unused today.
All right, thanks. Anything else, Tara? That pretty much covers what you're thinking.
That covers it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sandy, do you want to chime in on any of this? I'm going to skip Sandy, I guess. Ryan, you've been sitting quietly too. Do you want to questions, comments, anything on this that you want to share?
No, I like the Memorial Walk alternative as well, just because it allows for that additional planning that they want to do. I really like the tree that they put in the historic walk. I think that adds a lot of value there. And the ventral symmetry, as Tara mentioned, would look really good. So that's my vote.
Thanks. Sandy, can you hear me?
Yes, and actually I was on mute and didn't realize that I was talking. You just didn't hear me. I like the things about the Memorial Walk too. I want to follow up on Susan's question because I want to have some understanding of sort of the timeline, Mark, to put other structures and other monuments up at this point in time. And I hear that there's several in the future. I guess I would love to know a timeline, because I do think that obviously affects the way things look, obviously, and could affect which one would be the preferred drawing at this point in time. Can you give us an idea of the timeline of what you're planning to put up and how many monuments?
What we were attempting to do, Sandy, was to have some kind of significant event every year for the next 2 or 3 years, to have something to celebrate every anniversary of Memorial Day, for instance. And so these are all ideas. Nothing's been put down on paper. There have been no designs, but these are just discussions among the veteran community about there are segments of the veterans community that have not been recognized. You just went through the cultural diversity meeting about how certain segments of our population have not been recognized. That same thing exists in the military. So we need to correct that, and in my opinion. And so consequently, over the next 2 to 4 years, every year would have some kind of significant contribution to the Veterans Memorial Park. Again, totally thoughts right now, and nothing's been finalized or promulgated at all. But thank you.
So you're anticipating maybe as many as 4 monuments, additional monuments, Mark?
Well, the original discussions were something for women, something for Americans of African descent, something for POW MIAs. It could be only one of those. In other words, there does come to a point where you can put too much in a small space like that. So, obviously it's open for comment and public opinion, but the most important thing is that we need to make sure that we're always taking into consideration the wishes of veterans. I mean, this is what this place is all about. So, and balance that with what the town would like to have as well. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. The only thing that I would add is, in an effort to include every group, you could end up with 15 more monuments. And
yes. I agree with that.
I do think that sometimes less is more. So I think you have to be careful that you don't want it to become, obviously you want it to be a thing of beauty and not a thing that looks cluttered. And sometimes in an effort to recognize every subgroup, you have a real challenge.
Well, we recognize that and know that. And of course, nothing would be done unless it went through the appropriate channels, through your committee, through the town, etc. But the ideas would be originating from the veterans community. And Doug Rose and the MBAC we're working hand in hand with the veterans community to make that happen. Doug and MBAC are veteran spokespersons for anything that has to do with interfacing with the town. So it'll for certain go through the appropriate channels.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I've got a question. I know Leanne's here too. One of the big concerns that has been expressed by Parks and Rec through this whole thing was using seating that was going to take space out of the park. And I'm looking at Memorial Walk, which is diagram number 3, which has a seat wall. And I'm just wondering what Parks and Rec's thoughts are or on that and any of the other designs.
From, perspective of flexibility, the seat wall, it eliminates flexibility up in that part of the park. Again, like we saw the large Memorial Day ceremony, in that example, it sounds like looked like everyone, they brought their own seats that they were going to be in. Let me stop. I'll let others sort of talk through it.
If I could, I know Leanne here, and she was the one who had the biggest reservation about this.
Yeah, I know I'm just a lowly staff person who works in the park every day, but I would just ask, I know we're trying to find compromise. We are not going to find consensus, and I know compromise is kind of the name of the game. I would ask from staff's perspective, and after meetings with Public Works, who are absolutely against anything being on the inside of the sidewalk. And I'm going to speak for them because they're not here to speak for themselves. I'll just ask that nothing vertical be placed on the inside of the sidewalk. I can give from our end or my perspective, not my, on things that are flat and that are still taking up our space into the grass. But I just feel very strongly about anything vertical on the inside.
Would that be only, did that only be the seat wall that we're talking about? Is everything else, the Memorial Plaza comes out on the grass, but I'm assuming that's a flat surface.
Yeah, those I think are flat, and Corey can speak to that more. I spoke to him briefly about it. My understanding is that everything is flat. There are columns, however, on both ends, one of which I would just like to ask that everything be on the other side of the sidewalk. I think it's not a huge ask, and it's a compromise. And absolutely, I think I'm in agreement with everybody else that we just cannot have a seat wall on the inside.
Okay, so you're concerned about the seat wall and the two columns that are on the grassy. There are four columns total on each of the two that are on the inside of the grassy area. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, keep the ones that are already in the flower beds. And as far as the rest of the design, I mean, I certainly have a favorite. I don't think my opinion really matters on that part. I like symmetry, but I'm OCD. So, what do I know? I love the idea of walking into that little circle on the both bottom designs as I'm looking at them. That's kind of neat. But again, I know all of these things cost money. We're getting into money now. And so I think my biggest thing that I just really want to say for our staff, for me and my events personally, and Public Works, who is now going to have to mow around and trim around, and also brought up a good point about kids climbing on these things and jumping off and falling off. If they're inside the flower bed, I just think that would be held to a minimum, and I think Public Works would appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Anything else you want to add, Leanne, or does that cover what your concerns are or thoughts?
I think I will stop.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Mayor Taylor, I know you kind of buzzed in here saying you wanted to add something to this, so feel free to jump in.
Thank you, Howie. I think Susan and Sandy have hit the nail on the head from my perspective. And this is really going to be a question back to Mark. I think your ideas that you mentioned need to be shared with the group as to what your long-term vision is for additions, because doing this piecemeal in vacuums is going to not be productive all the way around. And I'll go back to the example, and this is not meant, it's going to sound critical, but it's really not meant to be critical. If the vision of the American Legion, Mark, had been shared with a larger audience, I think we could have, or might have been in a different position today of not having drawings that call for some relocation. That being said, I think we have the ability to have a very beautiful park there at some point. But I do think if you and your group have visions to make additions, even if they're just conceptual, at least identify where those additions might be and the size and scope of what those additions would be, because that might, at least from my perspective, that would help me visualize what you're seeing. So,
Mark, is that something you can kind of get out there? Mark, is that something you can get out there without obviously not being held to it, but just to give us an idea of where you want to place these in general dimensions so that we can kind of take that into account?
Sure. I'll work with Doug, and we'll come up with some rough sketches. They'll be totally non-conceptual. They'll be just geographical plots of where on the property we might be placing something. I think
that would be helpful to us, Mark. Thank you.
Right.
If I can add in, Leanne and Jim, I think we're getting off the mark right now. We're looking at what we're going to do with these conceptual drawings and the boundaries. I think we are all these drawings right here. Leanne especially says, we're not going to come to a consensus. I think we can come to a consensus. But if you're going to go ahead and say nothing on that side of the wall at all, then not even the pillars, for the two pillars, which aren't asking for too much on the insides of those, and then taking away the seating wall, you guys are kind of saying, you guys are forcing us to say, we are going to have some, we're not going to come up with a consensus. I think we can come up with this consensus. I think whatever Jim and Leanne, don't ask Mark what he's going to be planning on putting in there. He can ask for the world, but he's not going to get it without us or somebody else approving it and bringing it up to the town board. These are just ideas and thoughts. I like this right here. I like the fact that if we can come up with a park entry, a park exit, and either the historical walk and a meditation area, all the rest is future stuff. You guys are worried about this future stuff, and we're not even talking about anything on the inside of the wall now, and you guys are trying to turn our arms and put them behind our back before we even start anything. So I think we can come up with something, but you guys gotta give us a little bit of a leeway for the park dimensions. We're looking at the park dimensions and looking at these things right here. Nothing is saying that we're putting anything inside there. Nothing is saying that we're going to overflow it. I think I made myself clear at the very beginning. Less is more also, and things that Mark has plans or ideas for will be considered, and it will go through the regular procedure. So I think we're getting way ahead of it. We're looking at the plans right now. We're looking at the entryways, and my request is look at the park entry. And if the pillars on the inside is going to be a huge issue, then yes, we will have some contention. But I think those two pillars are not going to take away from the park design.
Doug, one question here. Mark is talking about, I think this affects the issue of where the left columns will be for park entry. That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
In other words, knowing what's going to happen in the future allows some consideration of where to put we'll call them the left columns, and that's why it comes into play. No other reason, not to handcuff anybody, but that's a point that Mark has made that I think my folks are kind of curious about. What's there. In other words, where to delineate the left side.
Understood.
And that's the reason it comes into play.
Understood. And if you look at that part of the park today, that one playground ride and that area underneath the tree, it's a dead area. And we can say one way or the other. If Corey plans on cutting down that tree and making more use of it, that's another thing for the park. But the column coming down there and then looking at the upper side of that sidewalk, for possible future monuments, I don't think that's going to hinder the Stumptown Park. But again, we're talking about future stuff that we're not even considering or talking about right now. We're looking at these two plans and the posts on each side.
Hey, Doug, I'm sorry. I'm having a bad connection here, and I apologize. I don't know how much of my comments were heard. I'm hearing your response, so I'm guessing that maybe only part of my comments were heard. My comments about Mark's future plans were not necessarily about taking up any of the space. It was really more about balance, because these architectural drawings that we're seeing here, I think they're trying to balance what's there today. That's what it appears to me. But if there are future plans, as Mark has alluded to, I think that if those were shared with the architects, not me, but shared with the architects so they could incorporate those into their design, that might help everybody out. That was really the point I was trying to make. And if it came across haphazardly or sporadically, may have been my connection, or maybe I didn't articulate it right.
My fault, Jim. I understood that you're talking about if we had plans that are already looking to be put in there. I think Mark has a lot of desires and thoughts to be put in there, which would be great. But at that point, if we're throwing it all out there, it hasn't been approved. And I don't know if the designer should take something that's not going to be approved in there for the future designs in there, the POW, the Black History, the Women's Monument, or something of that nature are great ideas. But I don't know if that should be something to be put into the park right now. Right now, we're talking about what's currently there, which are those monuments. The memorial area and the meditation area. I think those were the huge things that we were looking at initially, and the boundary. So the boundary, at the left and right boundary, as far as a pillar on the inside. We're conceding a lot without a seat wall right now. And I think even though we said all of them are likable, even my idea, with the seat wall in the Duggan Plaza and the one right below that one, I still think, the historic walk and the meditation area combination would give you guys your desires to have an open area for the all of your events.
Yeah.
Well, I don't totally disagree with you, Doug, and I think we can come to a consensus. Again, my comments were really the more information we can give to these architects about what the ultimate desire for this park is, either the Veterans Park or Stumptown Park or the combination of the both, right. I think will allow them to provide us a better final product or choice of products. That was really only the intent for my comment.
Understood, Jim. And I think if we took what we have for the designs right now, you have almost all of the park filled except for that top left corner, to balance it out. So, you have something in the top right, so something on the top left might be nice to balance it out in the future. And I don't know if that would be a hindrance or deter the park idea.
Yeah, and backing on that, looking at where we are today, the firm we've hired, the schedule that we're on, we're roughly, 6 weeks from, being prepared to present to the town board. I do think any new information will be, I guess, embraced, but it is tough looking at where we are today and the charge we were given, and then we in turn gave it to this landscape architect, put something together roughly in, call it 10 weeks. It will be tough to, I guess, certainly we will consider everything, right? But we are working with what we see today and making the best use of this space. And I see Scott's had his hand up for a while there.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on that left boundary near the playground. It was said a couple of times that it's just a dead area of the park, which is untrue. I mean, the playground is an active amenity in the park. It gets used at events and not during events. I think there's a way to utilize the space on the north side of that sidewalk on the left-hand side of the park, as you're talking about using it in the current design or for future monuments. I think there's a way to utilize that without impacting the playground. I don't think it's necessary to remove any existing equipment. Excuse me. Part of the goal of this project was to not impact existing park amenities. And I think that playground doesn't need to be impacted to get the best out of this memorial project.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Corey, one thing. We've talked about those columns, the 4 columns, and we've talked about the height. I would really be interested, too, in what their footprint's going to be, how big they're going to be around as opposed to how high. I think that's going to make a difference for me as to whether an interior column, is going to be a problem or not.
And so, looking at this, really the question tonight is, do we like columns or not like columns? And then go from there with the design team, to come up with, and even what we present to town council at this level, I mean, it really would be conceptual. We would not, we give a roundabout, sort of estimation of what the exact size would be, but until we get into this detailed design, we aren't paying those guys to come up with that level of detail at this point.
All right, thank you. I'm going to open it up for any last comments from anyone. I think with the feedback we have the feedback you need to go back to Stuart right now, but I'm going to give anybody who wants to say anything else one last opportunity before we move on.
Howie, this is not a comment, but Corey, can you scroll that up a little bit? I can't see the titles under the bottom 2. So when you were referring to them by name, I couldn't. Yep, there you go. Okay, so the Memorial Walk, right. Okay, I heard you say Memorial Walk, or a number of people say Memorial Walk a few times, and I was wondering which one that was. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I guess I would just say one last time that, again, if one of the goals and bullet points originally was to not negatively impact anything, that we could just keep that in mind. And I will vote and push again for 2 different departments on staff to do whatever you want on the other side of the sidewalk. We don't really have a preference there. I would also say, that I would like to be kept abreast of the construction time, because not that it's going to happen right away, but it definitely needs to be done at a particular time of year for our event season.
Right, and I just want to answer, Lee had asked a question, Lee Myers, and Lee, as we understand it, the funding source is going to be from town funds, but we have not been given a dollar figure. That is probably going to get taken on when they come up with the design and fine tune it. We don't have that information right now. It wasn't given to us back when this project was authorize is the best thing I can tell you.
Yeah,
thank you, Corey.
Well, just to share, there's no budget for this project. It'd be presenting the cost estimate and then the board making a specific appropriation for the project if they choose to approve it.
Corey, is there anything else you need from us that we haven't given you for you to go back to Stuart at this point?
No. I think the recording, I've got some notes. I didn't see anybody using the chat, but that's fine. You know, we got the recording. So, I mean, we have all your comments.
There were a couple of comments in the chat, Corey.
Okay.
Hopefully you captured the.
All right, yeah.
And then one final comment from me, and I just want to say thank you very much, Corey and staff and the Park and Recreation Advisory Board for all the time you've put into this, as well as the Veteran Advisory Committee. This has been a long process, and it's going to take a long time to get it to be right. But I being a longtime resident of this community, being a former mayor of this community, I'm very proud of this community, and I want this to be done right, not quickly. This is going to be here for long after all of us are gone. Let's get it right, not rush into anything, and let's spend the time, effort, and money to recognize our veterans properly rather than quickly. Thank you, Corey.
Thanks.
Well said, Jim Taylor.
And I mean, it sounds like we're wrapping up. I will share next steps again. So we're going to take the information. Well, are we still looking at the diagram? I'll stop sharing and look at some faces if we are.
Yeah, Corey, can you email the diagrams to us so that we can have hard copies to hold on to for future reference?
I can. And if you can, just remember that these are drafts.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but it would really help in any further discussions because they've been labeled and named, and that would help us out quite a bit.
Certainly. So from tonight, we're going to circle back with, when I sort of described this design team, it is made up of, Parks and Rec staff, the town engineer, the landscape manager, and then the landscape architects. And I guess from there, we're going to go through iterations, talk about it, and, come up with what, I guess thinking about the comments and the input we've gotten and come up with what we're going to call the 3 best options to present to the town board. And again, from there, it is, sort of out of our hands to the whichever one, I guess, is selected. We're certainly going to make a recommendation for one. But then it's also, like was brought up earlier, the funding piece. So short version of what I just said is we'll see what happens once we get done with this.
Well, everybody, thank you for your input. Appreciate it, and for taking the time to be in on this tonight. Obviously, we're not done yet. This is at least gives us a big step forward to move to, we'll call it phase 2.
I'm sorry, say that again.
All right. This will give us input we need to move on to the next phase, which allows Stuart to fine tune some of this and so we can get down to the 3 proposals for the town council. So thank you. I appreciate you taking the time, members of the committee and members of the public. Thank you guys for chiming in. Appreciate it. All right, the next thing is on our agenda is the division reports. Everybody copy of those? They were sent out beforehand. Anybody have any questions or comments on any of those? I do have one question. I don't know if Leanne's still with us. We had some trouble, I understand, with Everbright and the pod ticket system. Has that been resolved or not? I know the Playhouse, for example, told me their big problem was people were buying 4 tickets and reserving 4 pods instead of 1 pod, but I think they've got that straightened out. But I understood we had some significant problems with Everbright at the get-go on the last offering.
Hey, Howie, did you need me, Howie? I stepped away, but I heard my name on Jim's thing. Is there something I can help you with?
Yeah, you were having some problems. You were having some problems with Everbright at the last opening in terms of the pods and ticketing, and I'm wondering, has that problem been resolved? Or are we still seeing it?
I was not able to resolve it, but I could sure talk to you about it. It's probably too hard to explain on here. It's kind of tedious, but there's something on a screen that caused people to get confused in the ordering process. And I don't.
Right. So they were ordering 4 pods for 4 tickets,
Correct.
which is what the play had to me. Exactly.
Correct. There's a quantity window when they open up to purchase, and that's the first thing everybody sees. So they choose a quantity. But if they choose a quantity, it sends them into that ticketing option. And if you look over to the right, it says or purchase via the map. It should have a big or in the middle of those two things, but people think they have to do both, and that's what's messing it up.
Yeah, Senator June had mentioned that they had to do quite a bit of work going back and getting people to limit themselves to 1 pod for 4 tickets.
Yes, it's very that one glitch seems to be throwing everybody off.
My next question for you on this too is there an end date for the pod system, or is that open ended? Is this something we're just going to have to deal with for a short window of time, or we don't know how long we're going to continue to do this?
Oh, I'm done with pods for me. Once he lifted everything, we are, unless I have to do something to sell tickets to something, I may go back to it. I hope I never see another pod, but right now I'm done with pods from our end.
So Everbright problem has basically worked itself out by the lifting of all the mandates.
Correct.
All right, thanks. That answers my question. Sorry to make it more confusing than it had to be.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, anybody else have any questions on any of the division reports? Corey, your director's report.
Don't have a whole lot. Sad to say that we're still working on the dog park, and dang it, we're still finalizing that darn flashing beacon to cross John Street. In this case, weather pushes out. It would have been done last week, but it rained. Beyond that, we are, forging along. Summer camps, like you see, started this week. We are in the middle to 3/4 position of the budget process. Had our second budget workshop this past Monday. A lot of discussion about what the manager is proposing. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the board goes with. Not a lot of huge projects proposed next year, but currently I will share what's in the existing budget. Does include an initial appropriation for Uden Pottery. Right now, that's still in the budget. Stop me if I shared this with you last month. But some improvements at the community center and a couple of pieces of equipment, playground equipment, and 1 piece in Windsor and swings in Bauckham and somewhere else.
Sardis, Matthew Sardis.
Yes. That's pretty much it.
All right, anybody have any questions for Corey?
Hey, I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding the Crestdale Trail, so the artist changed. Sorry, I jumped. The Crestdale Trail, did the artist change? So it's not Jonathan anymore.
Oh, you're talking about the mural?
Was that
the Crestdale mural?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Did that change?
The mural, the street mural. Yes. So I forget her name.
Michaela?
Yes, Michaela. As staff, I'll apologize. We didn't share a lot of the background information ahead of asking for that vote. I do think it would be most impactful to have a person of color do this mural. Certainly something that adds a little bit more to the project. Speaks, say a little louder than just the art itself. The artists that we did select. So, I did put it out. I do think were there any objections or just large, opposition to the change?
Well, I thought we voted on Jonathan in this, so there was a change.
We did. And then, yeah.
Okay.
But there has been there is a change now, and it is who?
Michaela. I think she was the first artist, if I remember right, in that group that we had last time.
Okay.
I was going to hit this in old business, but we've already approached it. Anybody else want to comment on the switch from Jonathan to Michaela on the Crestdale mural?
Well, I value her art, but I like Jonathan's. I liked what he was providing. So did we just switch with Michaela just because of her race?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, I think it was, I'd say comparable talent. If not, well, I won't say great. I won't scale talent, right? But yes, we did switch to Michaela. I do think the synergy of having an African American artist was only added. It was a greater impact to the actual art project itself.
Just one, and I think I've shared this before, Corey, and I think one thing that would have been helpful is rather than, because I think some of us weren't even necessarily aware of what the ethnicity of the artist, I certainly support doing an African American artist for an African American project. I don't have a problem with that, but I think it would be helpful if we had just been given those African American artists to look at as opposed to everybody.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. Yeah, and I'll apologize for that. We certainly could have made it a little more clear, I guess, what one of the goals of the selection was. So again, I apologize.
All right. Anybody else have anything on the Crestdale mural? We kind of jumped into old business, Corey. You had also sent an email out about a second mural. I don't know if you want to discuss that tonight, or we're going to leave that till next meeting.
Let me leave that to Melissa.
That was the Osira. Is it Osira? Osiris is going to be doing that one. I can't remember what the email said.
Osiris. His name is Osiris. Osiris Rain. That is for the mural at the Loyalist, which will be on the brick patio that faces North Trade Street. So at our July meeting, I know we don't typically meet in July, but we'll meet briefly, for a virtual public input meeting. And we should have 2 designs from Osiris to present at that meeting with concepts behind it. And the idea for that meeting will basically be to get public input from the community, and then to also hear what y'all have to say about it, and then we'll present both to the board with the feedback to hopefully select one. Officially, y'all will select one as well, and we'll share that with the board, and then once the board gives stamp of approval or not, then we can get started on installation.
Thank you. And the Crestdale street mural, are we going to get, what's the timeline for a preliminary design on that?
So the first step is to get Commissioner Whitley to meet with us and the artist so we can set up a community meeting in Crestdale. The idea is to have the initial public input meeting with the community members of Crestdale. Michaela is really invested in getting to know the community. She wants to be there at this meeting so she can make that connection, so the community can make a connection to her and what she has ideas of. And she wants to hear their ideas before an actual drawing is created. There's been some different ideas thrown back and forth. There are certain parameters that she has to fit into based on just street safety. The town engineer has guidelines from the state as well regarding color, repetitive patterns, size, all of that. So all of that will also have to be taken into consideration. So an initial design, most likely, we're looking at, I would say, like August at the earliest. And then we would have another public input meeting once there was a design to look at, and then follow the process from there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there any other old business that we need to discuss other than those 2 murals? Anybody? No.
No.
What? I'm sorry, Corey, go ahead.
We'll just mention, like Melissa said, traditionally we do not meet in July. I guess, is everybody available to meet in July? Good. Okay. We'll keep it short and sweet.
And we'll do it. It'll continue to be virtual, correct? We'll have a virtual meeting in July also.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
all right. I'm sorry, Debbie. Go ahead.
So I have a question. So So is it possible that in the virtual meeting, the two proposals are going to be shown with citizen input? Is it possible that they can be removed? Like if they don't like it? Like, are we going to have to start over?
I don't think so. I'm not going to present it in that kind of way. I'm going to say these are the two designs. I mean, unless there's extreme opposition to it, maybe, but we're paying the artist for these two designs, so hopefully going with one. The concepts have been discussed at the last month's meeting, so I think as far as that goes, there shouldn't be anything that would create that kind of feedback, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we're looking at
not another wall poems.
Sore spot.
Yeah. See, I had almost forgotten the wall poem.
No, wall poems.
Never forget. Never forget.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll retract what I was about to say. That we're judging appropriateness and not the art. So I guess we could be judging the art.
Any other matters of old business anyone want to discuss? Any new business anybody want to raise that we haven't touched on already? Going, gone. All right. In that case, guys, it's been a long night. Thank you all for coming and giving all this time. We appreciate it. And I guess what's the date for the July meeting? I don't have a calendar up in front of me. So
the 14th.
So it'll be the 14th at 6:30, but we can plan on a short meeting. So hopefully y'all can be there, but we'll go from there. All right. Thank everybody for coming, including Doug and Mark and both former mayors. Appreciate it. And thank you again. Have a good night, guys.